Hi, good afternoon and welcome back. Today we are going to look at two very simple, very healthy salads. A friend of mine came to my house the other day and we're having a beet salad and a cucumber salad, which is something that I make all the time. And he said, "Oh, I really like this. You really have to show me how to do it." And I said, "Oh, it's very easy." And he said, "Well, actually, my mom always tells me everything is easy and I can never make it." So I thought, okay, well, you know what? It's true. Maybe it's easy for me and maybe other people don't know. When you don't know, it's never easy. So I'm going to show you how to make two very simple salads. First, a beet salad and then a cucumber salad. So red beets bought fresh usually come in bunches. They're like that. I've removed already some of the leaves. But you do want to cut around so that there's no bit of grass left or a little tail and whatever. So you're going to remove all of this. Just cut it. You need a good knife because beets are pretty hard. They're a pretty tough vegetable. They also it's very, very red, obviously, because they're red beets. But you kind of want to protect your things a little bit because it does stain a little bit. Now, one thing about beets is they're an interesting vegetable that you're going to cook with the skin. So right now, I just got this in the store. All the skin is still here. And the reason for that is because the skin is quite tough to remove. But once you've cooked them, and all you do to cook them is boil them, the skin then comes off really easily, as we will see a little bit later. So once I've done this with my beets, these ones are pretty small. I guess depending on where you are or depending on the season, you can get bigger beets. So these work like potatoes. You're going to boil them. You're going to put them in water. I have a pressure cooker, so I'm going to use the pressure cooker, which usually is a little bit faster than just to cook them normally just in water. But when you just put them in the pan with water, the good thing is that you can keep checking. With the pressure cooker, it's a bit more complicated. But you basically are going to grab your dish, whichever one you choose, whether it's a pressure cooker or the pan, just a normal saucepan. As I'm using the pressure cooker, I want the beets to be in some water, but not necessarily completely covered because then they cook slightly differently. But the bottom line is that you want them to be soft enough inside, but you don't want them to be too soft that they're going to crumble because you want to be able to cut them in like little squares to make the salad. So I'm just going to put my beets here and then I'm going to add some water very simply. And let me just do that so it doesn't interfere with the instructions. There we go. Okay, so I've put enough water so that the way the beets are right now, they're about halfway in water. And for the pressure cooker, you have to be careful because a lot is going to exit out of, like, it's going to be a lot of steam. So you want to make sure there's enough water. And beets, as I said, they are pretty tough vegetables, so they do take a little while to cook. Normally for beets this size, I'm going to put probably about 25 to 30 minutes on the pressure cooker once it starts to come out of the cooker. So right now I'm just going to set them on the heat. That's fairly simple, and that's your first step for the beets. So at the same time, as I want to make two salads, and I just like to use the time wisely, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the cucumbers. So cucumbers, I have here quite a few cucumbers. I bought 6. I usually make quite a bit because it keeps for a little while. And the thing with cucumber is that it's quite light, so you can really have as much as you want, pretty much. But it's a really, really nice salad, and usually when I make it, it goes really fast. So I'd rather make quite a bit than not enough. And the other thing is that it seems like a lot, but we're going to cut them, and cucumber has a lot of water. And as we're going to cut them and slice them in very small slices, they really lose a lot of their volume. So this might seem like it's a lot at the beginning, but when they're actually done, it's going to look like a lot less. So that's what we're going to see. So cucumbers, very simple. So you buy your cucumbers. Some are that you can buy in the store have a slightly different shape. They're a little bit less thick and they're longer, but it doesn't matter. They're all as good. So what I do is I always cut the little part at the top, and then I just simply remove the skin. If you buy very nice, good, organic cucumbers that you know are very good and they are grown without any various chemicals, if you're sure about that, I believe the skin is very good. So it's you know, you might want to actually keep the skin or some of it, depending on the type of cucumber. Sometimes the skin is a little bit tough. So I personally prefer to remove it because I'm not actually 100% sure about how my cucumbers were grown. If they were in my own garden, it would be different, but in this case they're not. So I just prefer to remove the skin. So that's what I'm gonna do. In the meantime, my beets are starting to cook, so I'm using this time properly. And so this is what I do. So I'm actually gonna peel a couple for now, just for the sake of this class, and I'll just show you what I do, because you don't really need to watch me peel 6 actual cucumbers, but you'll get the idea. So what I have is, I have one of those cheese grater things that you can buy anytime. You can also buy just this part, and this is the part I'm going to use. I'm not sure if it has a name or what the name is, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this with the cucumbers to cut very, very small, very thin pieces. And I'm going to put them in a colander because, as I say, cucumber have a lot of water, and we're going to want the water to drain as much as possible. And to do that, we're going to use some salt, which I will demonstrate in a minute. So I'm going to grab my cucumber, give them a little rinse, just to be sure. And here we go. So I'm going to grab the first one. And just with this, what I do is I just hold it like that on the colander and just cut it. Now, personally, I prefer to do it like this because you get much thinner pieces, and that's kind of how I prefer to eat the cucumber. But I'm going to show you what it looks like. So you have very thin pieces like this. If you prefer them a little bit thicker, it's kind of a bit more crunchy, and that could work too. So it's all according to your taste, you know, whatever works for you. That's fine. Also, cucumbers have these little pips, and I don't know if you can really see that, but I just got one here. To me, it's really not a problem. I guess if you really want to, you could remove some of them, but I think that it would be a lot of hard work for really not much. But you can actually do that once you have your cucumber. If you cut it in the middle, as you can see here, all the pips are there, so you could actually just simply go like this, and you've removed most of the pips when you do this. The downside of this is that it removes a little bit of the cucumber itself, the good part in the middle, which I think is very good. So I don't normally do it, but you know, if you feel that you don't like the pips and you prefer to remove them, then you're very welcome to do so. It won't make much of a difference at the end. In fact, it won't. It will still taste the same completely. So that's my first cucumber that's done. Okay, so I have here like a small amount of very thinly cut cucumber, and I'm gonna keep going with the second one. And as you see, this is a very fast process, and it's very, very simple. It really doesn't take that much time, even when you have 6 cucumbers. And so what I do once I've done, I usually do 2 by 2 because that way you can put salt pretty much everywhere and you just kind of leave it. So I'm going to finish this cucumber. Sometimes it spits out a little bit, so you just have to be careful, but it's just really, it's watery. It's really nothing bad. There we go. So here I have, in just a few minutes, we have these 2 cucumbers, and they, you know, they fill the colander quite well, but as you will see eventually, they will diminish in size. And here's what you do with the cucumber. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to grab some salt, and I'm just going to spray a little layer of salt. Now the reason we put some salt is because it kind of helps it to get rid of the water. So it's going to drain a little bit faster. And the way I do it is I usually do a couple of cucumbers, I put a bit of salt, then I do a couple more, put a bit of salt, a couple more, put a bit of salt, and so on and so forth. And then I'm going to leave it either in the sink or in the fridge with a plate under, because a lot of the water is going to come out. And I'm going to leave it to drain for a little while. Okay? And all of this, in the meantime, my beets are cooking, so we're all good with that. So I'm just going to pause the video right now to just finish my cucumbers, and I'll come back to you when things have moved on a little bit, when the beets are finished cooking, so that you can see the next step. Alright, so here we are back. It's been about 25 minutes, and so I've just stopped the pressure cooker, got it out of the heat, and now I'm just going to open to see how it is. It's nice and steamy, so you have to be careful not to burn yourself. And then I'm going to put the knife inside. And yeah, they're still a little bit firm, but definitely soft. So it looks like the beets are ready. Okay, so they're sort of ready to peel, except that they're very hot because they were just on the fire. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the little metal container that they are in from the pressure cooker. Now, if you're boiling them in water, what you just need to do is obviously drain the water and then leave them out. So here are my beets, and what I'm going to do for now, I'm just going to set them in the sink so that they can cool down nicely. This I'm going to put aside and I'll deal with it later. And I'm just going to wipe here a little bit. And what we're going to do in the meantime, we're going to work on the seasoning that we're going to put in the beets. We might as well get it ready. Personally, I prefer to eat the beets when they're cold, so what I'm going to do once they're peeled, I'm just going to cut them, let them cool down, put them in the refrigerator, and season them later when they're actually cold. Some people like them a little bit warm, so you can just let them cool down a little bit less and still season them the same way. And of course, this is one example of seasoning. I like making vinaigrette. In fact, I usually have one jar ready. This is my vinaigrette already made. You see the different layers. I usually shake it, and then my sauce is ready. So for today, what we're going to do, we're going to do enough. We're going to make enough for the beets so that you have an idea of how to make this type of vinaigrette, which I think is the best for the beets. And with the beets in particular, I like to add a little bit of garlic. So I'll explain that in a minute. But let's go back to the vinaigrette. So normally I like to use balsamic vinegar. And I also use normally olive oil or a blend of different oils, but definitely with olive oil I like the taste. There's different oils that you can use. You will need salt and pepper and a little bit of mustard. And also I like to add some Italian seasoning or any kind of herbs, mixed herbs that give it a little bit more taste. So the first thing you're going to do now, we only have 3 fairly small beets, so I don't want to make too much. But we need to have enough seasoning, so I'm just going to put a pinch of salt, basically, a little bit of pepper, not too much, and the proportion that I like to use is about 1/3 of vinegar and 2/3 of olive oil. So whatever amount of vinegar I put, I'm going to put twice that of oil. So right now I'm putting the equivalent of a little bit more than a spoonful, and I'm used to doing this, so I'm kind of doing it without really measuring, but you can actually get a spoon and measure it exactly if you want to. And also all these things are to taste, so you might not want to use oil, or you might want to use less oil or a bit more, or you know, there's different ways to do all this. So you just add all of this, and then I like to put a little bit of mustard. Again, that's to taste. I'm not going to put too much because otherwise I think it overpowers all the rest of the stuff. And as I said, a little bit of mixed herbs, which I think are always nice. And here, so that's the sauce. It's all there. And what you want to do is mix it well together. As we're going to use it later, this step is not necessarily essential now, but it's good if you want to taste it and see if you want to add maybe more salt or something. You have to make sure it's well mixed to be able to taste it. Otherwise, you're going to taste only the oil or the vinegar if you go at the bottom. So you kind of want to make sure that you know what you're doing. And then you've got a nice sauce that's pretty thick. I'm thinking that maybe I made too much, so that's okay. I'll just add it to use later. This kind of thing keeps for a little while, so that's perfect. So here's the sauce, and what I'm gonna do for my beet salad, I really like to add a little bit of garlic. So I got a few pieces of garlic, and what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna mince this, and I'm gonna put it inside the sauce already so that it's done. And I'm just gonna cut small pieces of garlic. You don't want to crunch on too big a piece of garlic when you're eating your beets. It's not great. So I'm just mincing this into the sauce so that it'll be ready. And that's my second piece. Let me get these bits. Oop, there you go. It's a very simple process, and in a minute when I'm done with the garlic, we're also going to look at what the cucumber is doing, because remember we had put it to set and to get rid of the water a little bit. So it's still here at the stick, and I'll show you that there's a little bit, quite a bit of water already, but it's definitely going to need to stay for longer. Because, as I've said before, the cucumber is very, very watery. It's one of those vegetables that's got a lot of water. I don't actually know if it's considered a vegetable or a fruit, but I think it's a vegetable. So there we go. That's our garlic. And I don't know if I'm going to put the last one. Yeah, I can maybe put a little bit more, so I'm going to put half of this one, I think. And that should be enough. So once we've done that, the great thing is that we have all the ingredients that we need ready to make the beet salad. We have the beets and we have the sauce, which is a very simple vinaigrette sauce. And these two salads are very simple. I'm making a very, very simple version of each of them. You can obviously mix them if you want to. You can also add more things if you like. You could add beans or split peas or all sorts of different things in there. So I'm going to set aside the sauce for now, and I'm going to kind of see what my beets are doing. They kind of cool down a little bit, but I'm going to put a little bit of cold water on this so that I don't burn myself when I peel them. And I'm not going to cut them too much right now, so I don't need to worry too much about burning myself. Now, this is one of my beets, and as you see, I can just remove the skin just like that. I've just used a butter knife just to show how simple it is. You really don't have to cut anything. You just kind of scrape it slowly and your skin is going to come. It's very, very easy. There's no resistance at all. You just have to make sure you go all the way around. And the skin just comes out very easily. So of course, as we go around, it gets a little bit warmer, so I'm just gonna get a bit more water on it. There we are. Here. And there's a little bit that looks a bit funny here, so I'm gonna remove it. And that's one beet peeled. Then I'm gonna cool this one down. So it's a very, very quick, very simple process, and that's one of the things I really like about making beets. The fact that you don't have to peel them before, like you maybe have to do sometimes for potatoes, for instance. This peeling the soft skin once it's already cooked is a much better process in my opinion, and it makes life very easy, and it's also a lot faster. And that's the last one. There you go. It's just coming off really nicely. And that's a little bit to cool down. This is the last piece. And there we are. So all of this is a very pink process. You see, I'm just going to put all that away. Right, so now we have our beets, and I'm going to grab a dish. And I'm actually going to cut them already so that they can start cooling down, so that we can eat them later on today. So simple, you just cut the beets. I usually like to do like little cubes kind of thing. So this part right now might burn a little bit because they are still quite hot inside, so you just have to kind of be careful. I could use a board too, which would stop me from burning myself, but it's really not that bad. So sometimes what I do also, depending on the timing of it all, I just let the beets completely cool down and do the peeling when they're completely cold, which really doesn't make it any harder. It's exactly the same. Once the skin has been softened by the cooking, it's all very, very simple. So you can actually wait. So sometime if I'm here in the morning, I will cook the beets and I just let them be for the afternoon. And then if it's dinner time and I want to have the beet salad, that's where I just prepare it. And as you see, it's really not a very long process at all. So it's fairly simple. So that's our beets. Now you could make it more pretty and you know, get really nice even slices if you want to. That's all definitely up to you. The taste doesn't really get affected, I don't think, by the shape that you're gonna eat it in. So I make it the way that's kind of simpler and faster to me, and it seems to work. People usually like my beet salad, so I'm hopeful. So there we go, I'm almost done. And once I'm done, I'm just gonna set it aside. I'll probably try to find maybe a space in the refrigerator in a few minutes when it's kind of cooled down a little bit, because right now it's still steamy, so I don't really want to put them directly in the refrigerator. But I have my beet salad pretty much ready. I just need to cool it. I just need for it to cool down, and then to add the seasoning when we are ready to eat, which I will be back for when that's the time. So there we go. Of course, this is a little bit pink, so I'm gonna clean it. There. Now we're gonna have a look at our cucumber. So I did actually put my 6 cucumbers here. So when I first put it, it was really full to the very top. Now it's already come down a little bit, so I'm gonna set that in the sink. And as you can see, right now there's already a lot of the water that I'm gonna throw away, I suppose that it could be used for other things, but it's a little bit salty because obviously a lot of this water comes from the cucumber, but it's mixed with the salt that we put on it. So for now, the cucumber is not ready to use. It needs to stay like this for probably another hour at least, or even longer. I sometimes leave it overnight, and then that's it. When I get it out of the refrigerator, usually it looks very dry, but once you squeeze it a little bit, you see that there's still water, so it's still good. So I'm gonna just leave it like that for a little while longer, and then I'll come back to show you what we do with the cucumber, and at the same time, we'll do the seasoning of the beets. Okay, so welcome back, and now it's been a couple more hours. The beets are definitely cold now, so they're going to be ready to be eaten. So we're going to do the seasoning, and once we've done that, we're going to look at the state of the cucumber, which at this point should be a little bit less, and there should be a lot of water that have come out, and we'll be able to also season it, and I'll give you a few different options there. So let's just concentrate on our beets. So our beets are here in the dish. There's quite a good amount here. We have our vinaigrette that we prepared earlier, so I'm just gonna remix it a little bit. It has the little bits of garlic in it still. And once it's very well mixed, so it kind of like thickens a little bit, you just pour whatever amount you need. So I think, as I said earlier, I think I made a little bit more than I needed, so I'm gonna put about half, make sure that enough garlic falls in it, and there. And I think for this amount of beets, this should be about right, so I'm gonna put this to the side, and then just with a spoon you just mix it together, and here you are, you have your delicious beet salad, and it's that simple. Now obviously you can choose different seasoning. On top of this, I could maybe add a little bit of cilantro, that would be quite good. You can maybe put some lemon. You can also add a few other vegetables, as I said before. This is really by all means not the only recipe for beets, but this is just a simple beet salad where you're going to really enjoy the beets more than anything else. It's where obviously the beets is the main ingredient here. So that's the first salad, and we're going to set it aside. And as a challenge from this class, I'll just ask you to maybe figure out another type of seasoning, or what else can you add to make it even better, or what you like for it. Okay, so that's the beets. Now I'm gonna grab a dish where I'm gonna put my cucumber, and I have my lemon here, which is part of the seasoning. Now the cucumber, let me see, I've been leaving it in the sink, so let me try to get it without spilling too much. So again, as I said, it's still quite watery. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to empty the plate here, which has now quite a lot more water. I normally empty the plate a little bit several times when during this process, so that it doesn't spill over, especially if I put it in the refrigerator, because that would be a problem. So so here's what's going to happen with the cucumber. So remember, in this cucumber we have quite a bit of salt, and also there's still a lot of water. The idea of putting the salt is to get rid of as much of the water in the cucumber as possible, so it's not too watery when you serve it. So here, this is what I normally do. I'm going to rinse it a little bit, because there is a lot of salt, and it should really be enough salt for your seasoning. You shouldn't really add any salt, but also if you leave it exactly like that, and if you just squeeze it without rinsing it, there's a good chance that you actually end up with too much salt. Okay, so what I normally do, because I know that I always put quite a lot of salt to help it drain faster, I'm going to actually rinse it and then kind of squeeze it with my hands to remove as much of the extra water as possible. And a lot of it has already come out. Okay, so let me just quickly give it a rinse in the colander. So I just kind of move it with my hands here to make sure that the water reaches everywhere, to rinse off the excess of salt that we may have, obviously. There we go. So at this point it's pretty rinsed, so now I've obviously added a lot of water in there, but I'm gonna just let it drain a little bit, and I usually just shake it like this. And normally when I don't hear water or don't see water, that's kind of where I know that most of the extra water I just added has gone. So that's still kind of coming out. So I'm going to keep doing this. And then what I do is that I'm just going to grab the cucumber in my hands and just like literally squeeze it like you would some clothes when you wash something by hand. And then keep doing that with the whole dish, basically, with the whole amount that's in the colander. And as you see, there's a lot of water. It's still really quite watery. So I'll put it back and I'll try to grab all the different areas in the colander. If some falls, you can always get it back. Oh, there's a really did fall here. Okay, I'm just gonna keep doing it here. And there we go. We just keep squeezing up until really most of the water is gone, because otherwise you're gonna end up with whatever seasoning that you make, it's gonna end up being a little bit watery. And especially if you don't eat it all in one go and you want to reserve it for the next meal, because it does keep a little bit, you're going to find that there's a lot of water, extra liquid in the bottom, which is going to be a kind of a mix of cucumber water and your seasoning, so it kind of removes the quality of the seasoning. But at this point, I think I'm pretty good. I'm just going to do one last little squeeze because it's really not too bad. There we go. And there. So let me just rinse my hands. So here. So here we have a nice amount of cucumber, which is a little bit drier than before, and also which has now probably a hint of salt rather than being really, really too salty to serve. Okay. So I'm going to put it in my dish. Make sure that I don't waste any, because it's very, very good. Oops, sorry. There. And that's the cucumber just ready to be seasoned. So the cucumber seasoning. Now there's very, very many different ways. I'm going to show you a very, very simple one, which especially at the moment, it's the summer, it's very fresh. It's one of my favorites. It's very light too, it's very healthy. That's when you just put lemon in it. Okay, as I say, the cucumber should still taste enough of salt. You can add a little bit of pepper, and I'm just going to add a little bit of lemon juice. Other ways to do that. Also with the lemon juice, very often I put a little bit of milk. If you like dairy, it kind of like smoothes it a little bit, I would like to say. Or you can even put cream, a little bit of sour cream or just normal whipping cream. That also makes it a little bit smoother. It's obviously not as light and probably not as healthy as just having the cucumber, but it's very nice. Cucumber is a very light thing to have, so you know, you can add a little bit of other things if you want to. Obviously, the other way to do it could be to use a normal vinaigrette. So normally I have my vinaigrette there that's ready. I could also use this one that has a little bit of garlic in it. It wouldn't be bad at all. But that obviously, with this kind of seasoning with the vinaigrette, you lose a little bit more of the actual taste of cucumber. So if that's what you like, it's probably better to have a seasoning that's a little bit lighter. What I also like to add, and that's with whatever seasoning, cucumber is very good with a little bit of onion. So sometimes I will slice small pieces of onion in it, so just about, you know, a fifth of the amount of cucumber, really not too much, but enough to give it a little bit of taste, and it marries very well with the cucumber as well. So these are various different suggestions for tonight. As I say, I'm just going to go with the simple way. I'm going to add a tiny bit of pepper, and I'm going to add some lemon juice. Now, I bought one of those little ready-made lemon juices thing. You can actually squeeze a real lemon. You can also put lime. It makes it a little bit less bitter, I guess, if you use lime. Sometimes I use a mix, but you know, everything works, and that's all very good. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of pepper here. And then, of course, you're gonna, you know, you have to taste it and see what, you know, how it tastes for you. In my experience, I know that I should have enough salt here, but if I don't have enough, obviously I can add some. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of lemon to taste. I like to taste the lemon a little bit, so I'm usually quite generous with it. And that probably should do it. And then again, you're going to mix it well together. And this is it. You have your cucumber. It's done. And so here we are. We have these two wonderful salads, the cucumber and the beets. And again, these are very, very healthy, excellent to start a dinner, for instance. It can be a very good lunch as well, with a little bit maybe on the side if you don't think it's going to be enough. But these are two very healthy dishes, and as you see, it's very easy to do. So I hope that you can make it at home and that you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much for taking this class. Bye.